Hey, this is DJ, this is Kaz, we're Buried Above Ground, and this is Speak of the Devil Podcast.
Greetings from Podcastville. Today is April 5th, 2020. Still under quarantine and lockdown. But all is not lost as we are still able to podcast, talk about some things that are going on, even though the world is shut down. So we got to a couple music things. The first and foremost and most coolest, since this is Wrestlemania weekend, not that it really feels like it or anybody would really know it, but it is Wrestlemania weekend, and like I said, for the first time they finally did the show on a Saturday, and they're going to do it tonight on Sunday night. So at the end I'll give a little recap of a couple of things that I liked. But for music, the coolest thing last night in the Boneyard Match between AJ Styles and the Undertaker was the Undertaker came out to Now That We're Dead from Metallica, and it was awesome. And that's all I'll say about that for now, because I just want to talk about the music aspect of that. We'll talk about the match itself later. But very cool to have Metallica part of the main event of night one of WrestleMania. And other music news, been a couple interviews with Machine Head recently, I think on their own podcast or some other podcast that they have guest appeared on. Phil Demmel most recently was actually on talking about his departure from Machine Head, what led to it, and kind of his whole relationship during the, I think, 15 or, I think it was like a 15-year run. It was a pretty long time that he was in the band. And, he was coming into the band at a time where they were kind of at their lowest. They didn't have a label. I remember the documentary at the time where they were signed to Roadrunner. Roadrunner dropped them, and then they got rejected basically by every major label out there, and ended surprisingly enough back on Roadrunner, but like the UK label of it. And throughout that, they acquired Phil, and then that's when they put out The Blackening and started having a lot of strings of success, Grammy nominations, touring with Metallica, really big, really epic records. And I think that's what Phil was saying in this, podcast, was that change towards the end, especially on the last album, Catharsis. Said it was basically just a Rob Flynn solo project, and, he had very little, if any, musical input. And he hated the album. Just like a lot of people did. I mean, I remember the Banger review on YouTube. I mean, it just destroys that album. I mean, there's nothing they like about it. I mean, it's just a complete rant. So, yeah, go to Banger on YouTube and type Machine Head Catharsis if you want to see some comedy or some just tearing up of a record. But yeah, so that was, the straw that broke the camel's back for him and the drummer as well. So they both left, and I guess it's all right now. I guess they said in the last few months I actually been on a tour together with his new band and Machine Head. And, conversely, there was an interview with Rob Flynn where, he's kind of defending all the band member changes, basically saying that, over the course of, a 20-some year career, they've only had 6 or 7, lineup changes or member changes. And, a lot of the members that have stay for, 7 to 10 years at a time. So, it's a pretty good average when you look at it like that. But I think, to the point people are making is, it's just hard to stay interested in a band when a lot of members change. That might be why a band like Metallica is still relevant, because most of those guys are still there. Just like the Rolling Stones and Aerosmith, it's all the same guys. You start changing things like Van Halen and, all these other bands, it's harder for the fans to stay connected to. So I get that aspect of it, but, I understand Rob Flynn's point of view is that I'm still making music. This is what we do, and Machine Head is here and will always be here. So as long as he's alive, I guess. So that was just interesting. Not really anything new. I mean, I guess Phil had said he had like a year like gag order or something where he couldn't talk about anything. But when he did it, I mean, I think he made a statement in the beginning that he just didn't like the musical direction, and that's pretty much still the kind of the tone that he's taken with all of his interviews. But he was the shredder, and it's too bad that they're not together anymore. But hey, life moves on. And speaking of life moving on, with all this COVID-19 and shutting down of tours, Megadeth and Dave Mustaine still has hope that they will be able to start their tour on June 12th. And this is one I think I want to check out if it does come here relatively soon. I mean, you've got Lamb of God, Trivium, and In Flames on the bill. So, and I've never seen Trivium. I'd really like to see Trivium. Matter of fact, I don't think I've seen Lamb of God either. I've seen Megadeth a few times, but that's a stacked bill, so that'll be a cool one to see. So I'll probably check that out this summer if I have an opportunity. And I guess the last piece of music news, there's not too much, but Powerman 5000 just put out a new single called Black Lipstick. There's a video that accompanies it as well. In my opinion, I didn't watch the whole thing. I just watched like a little teaser clip, but I swear it sounded, and maybe this is what they were going for, but the musicians all look like Nameless Ghouls from Ghost, and the vibe of the Black Lipstick song is kind of Ghost-ish, where it's not like real hard rock. It's kind of like bouncy pop metal. We'll see how the rest of the album goes. I don't know if they're gonna like try to take not just a page, but the whole book of songwriting away from Ghost and try their own spin on it, maybe it's just a one-off single just to kind of, they like it, and who knows. But apparently they're now signed to, they left Pavement Records and now they're with Cleopatra Records. I guess there is a album already in the works. I think they have a title for it. It's called The Noble Rot. I don't know if I said that right, but the last album was a new wave that came out in October of 2017, and it was okay. I didn't really, had kind of a lot of like dancey, not non-metalish stuff. The album before that, Builders of the Future, God, I love that album, almost front to back. I mean, that was a true return to form, like almost like the old early days kind of thing. So it looks like on this album they might be in between both of those styles. I guess we'll see, but that's not going to come out for a few more months, I guess. So we'll have to wait and see for the Powerman 5000 album. But I'm a big fan, so always interested to see what they are doing. So that's it for music. There's not much else to report. Like I said, with Corona going around, nobody's touring. People aren't even really putting out albums, which is surprising. You would think that if you have an album done, people sitting at home, why not release it? But I guess physical copies and stuff, even the few that are sold, they still want those, so they're holding off. So it is what it is. And kind of similarly in the world of video games, GameStop had taken some heat for like the first week of the shutdown, like trying to stay open as an essential business because they have computer accessories like mics and stuff. But you go in a strip mall and there'd be like everybody closed except the GameStop, and I guess cops were going there and having to like tell them to go home. So I guess they've now adopted to like most retailers just doing like curbside pickup and that kind of stuff. But everybody's affected, so it's a good time to sit home and play a nasty, gory game like Doom Eternal, which I've seen that like almost all of my friends have bought. So maybe this will be a time to reconnect with everybody and play some online. Although I don't know if I've only played it very limitedly, but I don't know if you can play the story mode co-op, or I know there's a multiplayer, but I think it's more like an Evolve kind of thing where one person's the monster and then there's like 4 humans, something like that. So I haven't tried that out, but maybe that's cool. But I mean, the main story is great, 60 frames a second, just crazy, frantic action, blood spurting everywhere out of these crazy demons. It's so over the top, like the developer said. It's just fun, it's not like it's not something to be taken realistically. You're fighting demons in hell. So if that's real, then Whatever. So, and last time when I was talking, I said that I had the AIM controller, but now I do have the Defender stock, which, as you can see, definitely helps kind of, hold that on your shoulder there, give you more stability. It helps a little, like with the whole walking around and the motion sickness kind of thing, but not a ton. I'm actually kind of hesitant. I don't play too many of these AIM games because the walking aspect really does get to me. So it's like, unless you got a full stomach and this whole thing, I mean, you can't play on an empty stomach in any of these VR games. I've learned that. You'll get sicker way quick. But with these in general, like I said last time, anytime you start moving around the virtual world and you're not just standing in one place observing, for me, and I've heard a lot of people, that's when the motion sickness really does kind of kick in. So there are some games, I haven't tried it yet, the Doom VFR, and a couple others where you can just click and it'll just warp you there, and that helps a little, but it's so fast, it's almost just as disjointing to your eyes and can kind of still cause that same motion sickness. So it's not ideal. And then I remember when I was playing Firewall, it's so realistic that, when I'm playing games and trying not to get sick, I always try to limit my motion, and especially in my head, and that helps a lot. But when you're playing some of these games where literally guys are busting through doors and you got to duck and cover and move all around, you can't help it at some point. You just start moving all around, and then next thing you know, it just hits you and you're sick. So it's trying to balance not getting too crazy into it and, not moving your head around too much and enjoying the game. But if you can stomach it, or if you're just playing like an on-rail like arcade shooter, this is really cool. It helps just with fatigue and overall accuracy, and it looks cool, right? So that's that. And that's really it. Video games, there's not much else. I don't know if I mentioned last time, I did play the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo for PS4. Very cool. I like the battle system now, where you're actually, somewhat kind of action-based, where you're not just pushing a button and let the scene play out. You actually do slash your sword. It's frantic. I mean, you really got to go in between the characters, so, I don't know, the balance, you really got to get the feel of it before you're good at it. But still a cool game, and I think that's it right now for video games. Not much to report. I guess the other thing is, Switch sales have been up, and I guess in a lot of places they're running out, and that's driving the prices up. So, because everyone's at home, everyone wants to play something, and if you're a casual gamer, and you don't have any systems, I'm sure, and you're like, my age or something, you might say, Nintendo, and just what comes to mind. So I guess Nintendo Switches are becoming harder and harder to find, but I have two, so I'm not worried. And let's finally move to wrestling. As I said from the beginning, Metallica closing the show last night for The Undertaker with Now That We're Dead as his intro. And wow, what a match. I mean, I guess I'll go back to the beginning and then get there, but up until the last half hour of the show, honestly, it was like Wrestlemania. I mean, the whole day. I mean, I know everybody is going like through sports and like, hangout withdrawals and everything, but for me, like, this weekend is always like this sacred weekend where you just look forward to this all year. I mean, for me and my friends, some of my friends, I mean, it's almost bigger than the Super Bowl in terms of like the gatherings and the fun that we have. So it's a fun time that, this year we are not able to partake in, but hey, it is what it is. We're trying to stay home and stay safe, but, and I know, I appreciate, they open the show and Stephanie McMahon kind of comes out and says, kind of to the effect of like, it is what it is. At least we're giving you something to entertain you. And I appreciate that. But, the most of the matches are just so boring. I mean, it's just like watching someone practice or something, I mean, in these environments, especially WrestleMania, the audience is a key component of what makes it exciting, seeing everybody go crazy when certain moves happen. I mean, they're having to shoot the camera angles on the inside shots to make it not even show the sides of the ring, to kind of distract you from the fact that there's nobody there, but you can't ignore it. and all you hear is the wrestlers now. You can hear them breathing. It's like, it's too much. Like, it's normally this different sound, even on television, that you get, that right now it's just very isolated and weird, with something that's kind of essentially fake in terms of, what they're doing, like predetermined decisions on the outcomes. It's a product that's forcing you to suspend your disbelief in order to enjoy it. This makes it really hard to do that. So I know that, the Boneyard match and tonight the Funhouse match with Cena is supposed to make up for that, because it's like shot, very cinematically. So I really don't have very much comments on a lot of the matches that I saw up until the very end, because they were just boring. I mean, sitting there and there's like some live streams that you can watch, like to try to have like people in the house kind of thing, but that sucks too. It's this experience is just bad. I mean, I know WWE, like storyline wise, they need to do this and move on, but from what I hear, the Performance Center is shut down, and now they're filming out of a secret location that, if gets discovered, I'm sure will get shut down. So there might not be content wrestling wise for 2-3 months until we pick back up again, storyline wise. So, why not just, like the Olympics or something? Maybe they should have just canceled it. I don't know. But I will say the end kind of did save it a little bit. I mean, if you blinked, you'd miss it. The Strowman versus Goldberg match. I mean, Goldberg matches and Strowman matches are always usually pretty short anyway. But, Goldberg walking out to the ring, and their ring entrances was longer than the match. I think it was like 4 or 5 spears that Roman got up from, and then 4 or 5 power slams that Roman gave to Goldberg, and that was it. You're a new Universal Champion, which, fine. It's cool to see Roman have the belt. I think he deserves the belt. There was a couple times in the last year where I thought he could have won and definitely earned having the belt. So good for him. But what a weird WrestleMania, where for the first time in history, the new champion was able to sit on his couch last night and watch himself win it on television while he's doing it. Never in WrestleMania history. So that's what makes it kind of lame. It's like even he was sitting there watching it himself. I get it, because of the situation. We have to do it that way. But, so the only thing that saved it, and it did. I mean, it really made the 3 hours of watching it worth it, and I'm sure tonight with the Funhouse it'll be the same. But the Boneyard match between AJ Styles and Undertaker was epic. It was awesome, and definitely something you could like go back and watch a few times and still get the same entertainment out of it. And like I said, Undertaker coming in, on his motorcycle with, like an edited version of Now That We're Dead. Perfect. And the greatest thing about this was, it's all like on some back lot, and they're like fighting, and there's like a farmhouse or something. It's real dark. But the greatest part was Undertaker just like almost like doing his own commentary, but it's not commentary, like that talk, like, come on boy, you asked for this, boom, hitting him like, this is what you wanted, AJ, boom, get up boy, boom. The more he would talk, the more I would just laugh, because it was so great. It was like classic. It wasn't cheesy. It was like, it was good. It was like, Undertaker, like, he knows how to be that American badass, that bully, and he did a good job of it. They had obviously his AJ's cronies come out and attack him, and at one point they had like what looked to be like druids like pop out of the farmhouse and then attack Undertaker, which I thought was weird, because I thought if they're druids, shouldn't he have been able to like use some mystical power and like turn them against the opponents? But whatever, they didn't. There was plenty of magic happening though at the top. They at one point get to the top of the farmhouse, and Undertaker's throwing people off, and then he does a choke slam to AJ, and he throws him off to the very bottom, which is like a 20-foot drop onto like this wooden pallet. I watched it back a couple times. It's definitely a dummy after like the first shot of him almost going out, and then the second shot of the thing falling. But it looked pretty realistic anyway, because if it would have been a real person, they'd have been dead. I mean, forget it. And then he's like shooting fire and flames and everything. And Finally, AJ comes back, hits him with the shovel. Undertaker's in the grave. He's going to get buried, and then all of a sudden, he appears behind AJ and then puts him in the grave and everything. So just like you thought he would, and then he rides off into the darkness, I guess, as it were. But man, it's hard to describe. It's one of those things you just got to watch, you know. So if you had the network and you were watching that last night, I'm sure it did make part 1 of WrestleMania fun. And tonight will be part 2, and I think it'll be more of the same. It's going to be a lot of these boring matches, you know, that are just hard to get into. And then in the end, man, we're going to get the Cena Bray Wyatt Funhouse match, which I think is going to be better than the Boneyard match, because I think they have a little bit more opportunity to get trippy with it, because with the 2 alter egos, and Bray Wyatt's character with the Fiend is very over the top right now with like the mystical and magic and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that's going to be worth the price of admission tonight. But again, I just don't want to get through 2.5 hours of Wrestlemania to get to one good half hour of content. I mean, this whole Wrestlemania show could have been a 1-hour show, just those few vignettes. And I don't know, that might have been better. I mean, because everything else just looks like a regular Raw or SmackDown. I mean, again, it's the sign of the times that we're in. Be happy to get anything rather than nothing. But most of it's boring. So, and I hate to say that about WrestleMania. It's usually like one of the coolest and fun nights of the year, you know. But nobody's having fun right now. So this is just one way to try to entertain yourselves a little bit. So that's it. So if you have the network, enjoy it. If you don't, you can order it for free for a month and then cancel it if you want. So that's it for the Speak of the Devil podcast. We'll see you on the next one. Stay safe. Wash your hands. See ya.